As many of you are asking about bikes in the range of, let's say, 300 to 500 bucks or something around 400 euros, I'm gonna tell you just a couple of things that will help you to make a good purchase. You often say like, hey Danny, I've got here two bikes with Shimano Alivio and Altus with aluminum frame, and which one should I choose? Well, first of all, I'd like to tell you that especially in this price range, there is not such thing like a bike on full Shimano Alivio or full Shimano Altus, because most of the times in this price range, for example, Shimano Alivio, you've got only the rear derailleur and perhaps front derailleur, and then maybe the shifters are Shimano Altus, and the rear cassette we don't actually know, and all the rest has nothing to do with Shimano. So we shouldn't be assuming especially that when the rear derailleur is Shimano Alivio, that the bike is on Shimano Alivio. And I'd like to show you some parts on which most of the manufacturers are trying to save money. And first of these is the bottom bracket. It's the part here, it's red in my bike. You don't see it really, and you can tell, is it Shimano or is it a no-name bottom bracket? And I can tell you that those brands making good bikes would give you at least some Shimano bottom bracket. The other thing is that you should look at the crankset, the chain, both derailleurs, the rear cogs or the cassette, and perhaps also the shifters as a whole. And I'd be really happy to see here some Shimano parts. I would rather try to avoid some no-name crankset and no-name rear cogs, but we are still able to find some bikes for around $400 or 350 euros, which would have complete Shimano components, at least here. Then there's the hubs here. That's the hub here in the middle of the wheel. I've never actually seen a bike which would have all the parts Shimano Alivio, including the hubs, because the hubs usually are something else. It can be something like Joytech, it can be also named by the bicycle brand, which is okay just to start with. And in this price range, I wouldn't seek for something else. So drivetrain is really important. The other thing that is important for me in the entry-level bikes is the brakes. Most of the mountain bikes today have the disc brakes. You can see on the other side of the wheel the disc mounted to the hub, and this is called a disc brake with a caliper in there as well. I'm using V-brakes because this is my old school stuff, because I am old school fan and Cannondale fan. But anyway, if you see in your bike that you are going to buy that it has some disc brakes, but it doesn't have hydraulic brakes, it has mechanical disc brakes, I would rather like to have good V-brakes than a mechanical disc brakes. Maybe there are some fine, good mechanical disc brakes which are operated, you know, by a wire, but usually the mechanical disc brakes will not be really strong, and those will be really heavy. The V-brakes are quite light, and if they are not some, you know, cheap plastic V-brakes, we should definitely avoid them. But in your bike for around $400, those won't be plastic. I'll be 100% sure those will be better. But you should also look for the future, that if your bike has V-brakes, it should also be disc brake ready, which means it should have some, you know, disc brake adapters. It's just best to ask the seller whether you'll be able in the future to mount some disc brakes on the frame. So the frame and the fork as well should be disc brakes ready. Mine is not, and my frame is not disc brake ready. I'm just running old school V-brakes. So If you've got the drivetrain, it doesn't have to be, you know, full Shimano Alivio, but at least Shimano, let's say Alivio and Altus and something like that, it's fine. If you've got hydraulic disc brakes, it's fine. If these are mechanical disc brakes, I wouldn't recommend that, but it can also happen that the bike in overall is good and it doesn't have V-brakes, it has mechanical disc brakes. So you'll just start with those disc brakes, just you know, exchanging them in the future. And one last thing that I would call really important is also the fork. In the price range we're talking about, if the bike has a front suspension, the fork will not be very good. You should be aware of that. It will probably be some Santur fork. I'm not saying that these are bad, but if I was to make a choice, I would rather like to have no suspension in my bike, and in the same price range I would get some better equipment, some better components for that instead of the suspended fork. The bike will be lighter and I'll be able in the future to mount some cool fork anyway. Don't worry, I didn't forget the soul of the bike, which is the frame. Of course, in the bikes we're talking about, you will most likely have some aluminum frame, which will be butted and also hydroformed. My frame is not hydroformed because when it was produced there was no hydroforming in bike production, but today there is. And I would rather like to have some lower Shimano or SRAM components with a better frame, perhaps a lifetime warranty frame, than having better components and frame I don't know much about. I would go for some good brands, paying for them maybe even 100 or 200 bucks more with a lower components, but with a frame that will really stand out, will be cool, will allow you to do a lot in the terrain, will be light, and if it will have a lifetime warranty, I'll be very happy about it. I will do also some videos about bikes with SRAM components, but these are some tips that will be, I think, extremely helpful if you're shooting for some $400 bike. So good luck in buying. You can also ask me a question in the comments or even paste in the link of the bike and I will definitely give you some advices. Good luck and see ya. Bye.